Welcome back to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are talking with the 2021 World Series Main Event Champion, Koray Aldemir, and we are talking about his amazing run at the World Series Main Event. Now heading into the final table, had an incredible day, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and 7. I mean, just amazing days. Now he's heading into the final table, and he is the absolute chip leader, 175 big blinds at 140 million. George Holmes having 100 million, but pretty much he was the dominant player at this final table. You were the chip leader pretty much day 5 on. Yes, you weren't the chip leader in day 6, but you were among it pretty much the entire time. From 20 on, you were the chip leader. You never gave it up until you got to heads up with George, where you lost it just for a little bit here and there. Mm-hmm. Was there pressure for you because you were the pro? Like, I'm the pro, I'm supposed to do this, I'm the high roller, I'm one of the German contingency, this is mine, it's mine to lose. And if you have that pressure, unfortunately, there's only one result that's a good result. Everything else is bad. So did you feel that pressure?
Yeah, I have to admit there was pressure. Yes, I mean, I remember saying it in the interviews during the event when they asked me, "Is there pressure for you?" I always said no, because I kind of wanted to play mind games on myself, telling me there's no pressure. But right. There was pressure, of course. Yeah, this like day 6, day 7 is the day where like people start messaging you also that wish you good luck, because they see that you ran deep, and then some non-poker friends find out at some point and they start messaging. So yeah, and being the chip leader always adds a little bit of pressure. I mean, of course, it's a great situation to be in, and it's like good kind of pressure mostly. But right. Yeah, and then me being the most experienced player also. So yeah, I felt some pressure for sure. Yeah.
So you go to the final table. Now, this year, there was no day off. There was supposed to be, but because they moved and added a DE and day 1E and day 1F, they moved day 2 over one day, because day 1F and day 2 ABD were the same day. It's very rare that actually happens. Yeah. So you actually had a choice. You could start with a full stack on day 1, or start with a full stack on day 2. It's very interesting. Yeah. Actually, I thought about that for a while. Like, what would you do? That kind of thing. But you had no break whatsoever. You went right into it. Did you like that, or would you have rather have had one day just to kind of take a breath?
No, I did not like that at all. I mean, I would have liked a break, but I know the others too. I knew we were kind of in the same situation. So from that point of view, I mean, maybe it was even better for me, because I've played like long tournaments definitely more often than George did. I mean, George must have felt the pressure, the fatigue even more than I did. Sure. But I mean, yeah, we were all we were talking before the days too, right? Like, all of us were tired, all of us were exhausted, so we were in the same boat kind of. But I mean, yeah, there are different reasons why like a day off would have been great. I mean, I didn't. The way it was this time, I didn't even think about letting my friends' family from back home fly in, right? Because I knew, okay, there's no time for that anyways. I mean, if there was a day off, maybe you can think about that, right? Like getting my parents over or so on. So this couldn't be done, and yeah, I mean, we were all tired. We didn't play our best poker all the time, I guess, on the last day. So yeah, I mean, it's a special situation this year, right? So they had to make a schedule and keep following that. But yeah, it wasn't great for us players.
Yeah, and I think that they were trying to do it. At least, in the original schedule, it was that there was a day off. And I think it is nice because it gets to get people fly in and all that stuff. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. You entered the final table. You were in seat number 2. You, in my opinion, didn't have the best seat. Like, I mean, you were the chip leader, so it's really hard to not have a good seat. But out of all things, George was 3 to your left. If there was ever a spot where, gosh, like you're in late position, you could just take advantage of every medium stack possible. And then this guy is sitting there right to your left. And then a couple of the short stacks were immediately to your right. And why I say that that's bad is that if they shove all in, like, it's not like you can put any pressure on them. They just make the move. So you didn't have the best seat. Again, you had 175 big blinds. So it's not like you maybe you could have sat anywhere and it would have been fine. But what was your strategy going in? And, what did you think about your seat? Did you not really care? Like, whatever, I'm just going to outplay these guys anyway.
No, I mean, when the final table started, I had like such a huge chip lead that it was kind of comfortable for me, that I could just raise a lot. Yeah, especially we got seated together 10-handed, right? So before the official final table started,
right.
And the jump from 10th to 9th was so big,
huge, massive.
From 600,000 to 1 million, I think.
Right.
So everybody had to be super cautious, and I had the huge chip lead. So at that point, I could like literally open any hand, or like 95% of hands or something. So the seat draw didn't even matter too much. It was probably even, it wasn't a problem that the bigger stacks were maybe on my left, because they still couldn't do much about it. Although, I mean, it wasn't ideal, but it wasn't that big of a deal, I guess. And then, when we got to 9, the jumps weren't that high, like from 9th to 6th to 5th. There weren't big jumps, so
only about $100,000 jumps. From 9th to 8th was 100,000, 125 more for 7th, 175,000 to 6th. So really, from 9th to 6th was 400,000. From 10th to 9th was 415,000. So you can see, like, it was such a massive jump just to kind of go from the final table, 10th to the final table. But then it was very incremental at the final table itself. And so how did that affect your strategy? Because other players, we talked with Chase Bianchi last week, previously, that, you know what, whatever, at that point, it wasn't that big of a jump. So I'm going to take my chance. And, that's why he talked about him going in with his hand. And if it's better for him to try to get a bigger stack and get more money. But for you as the bigger stack, what's kind of the strategy that you went into? Because it's very different. I mean, how many times you're in the final table of the main event with the chip lead? I mean, it's a very weird spot.
Yeah. So I couldn't go as crazy with 9 left, because of that fact, because exactly what Chase said. I mean, they were not gonna fold a good hand. They were trying to chip up to get to a good position for the first place, second place, and so on. It was kind of like 9 left. It was almost more of a normal poker game, not so much ICM and that weird kind of stuff. But it was still the WSOP main event final table, right? So I knew that people are still being excited, and I can probably still like open a little more than usual. That's what I did, but I didn't open like any hand anymore, which I could do like with 10 people left, for instance.
Right. It was a very interesting day one of the final table. A lot of, like you said, everyone's kind of maneuvering here and there. There was a couple of eliminations right away. I mean, it's funny. Somebody had said, who was at the press, oh my God, Chase already got eliminated. I wasn't even there yet. It happened so quickly. And then, the players just kind of slowly initially got eliminated fast, but then it really slowed down. No one was really doing anything. No one was getting out. And primarily it was because of everyone who went into that final table. Chase had 18 big blinds. Jared Eath, who went out in 8th, he had 10 big blinds. High Park, he had 17, but he doubled up. So he was back in it. Now everyone had around 30, 40, 50 big blinds. So there was a lot of room here. And that's kind of really what happened. You guys play it out. And then, I mean, this hand was unbelievable. Like, I had to watch it again because it was just so unreal for it to happen, that there was a hand where it almost happened where you were you guys were going to go heads up right out of the gate. And it was incredible. It must have seemed unreal for you while it was happening. Let me just kind of explain the hand to everyone, because as I said, it almost happened that you were heads up. Jack Oliver, who was the short stack, pushes all in for 20 mil. Josh Ramito pushes all in from the small blind for 27. You look down at the big blind and have queens, and you go, okay, let's go. Jack Oliver flips over Jack 9 of diamonds. Josh Ramito ace Jack. You have queens. Flop comes 10-9-8. Not the best flop for you, obviously. There's now a open-ended straight draw. Crazy flop for this spot. Turn is the 3 of diamonds, which makes it even worse because now Jack Oliver has a flush draw. The river completes the straight with the 7 of diamonds, but because it's a diamond, Jack gets the flush and triples up. Josh Ramito gets knocked out on the very next hand because he was so short stacked. But you could, if that's a blank, you now go into, they would have stopped it. Obviously they would have stopped that day right then and there. They would not have kept going. I'm sure the production company was like, oh, thank God that happened. So it wasn't a heads up, but you would have gone in 328 million to 57 versus George. If that ended. Instead, when you eventually got heads up with George, you were 262 to 130. I mean, this is a big difference. Were you, so what were you feeling when that card hit? I mean, like, it's a bad beat, but you're still massive chip leader. But did that it had to have stung, because you forget the money jump. It was almost like, now this is really in my hand. And all of a sudden it just slips. So that slips away, but it just makes it like, this is now going to be harder than I thought.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember that, because the funny thing is, when that hand happened, I had looked at I looked at one card. I had looked at the queen before, and I was thinking, okay, what other card would I call? Right. And then the other, then both of them went in, and then, okay, oh, that's a queen too. That's better double check that I didn't look at the same card twice. Right. So yeah, but at the time I was cruising so much, like everything went my way. So I wasn't as shocked, I guess, that I lost that one, because I knew at some point I will lose one. I mean, I can't win every hand. And maybe it was better this way in hindsight, that there was some trouble too. It makes for a better story, I guess. Like, that's like speaking after the fact, of course. I mean, it would have been obviously way easier if I just been 2 heads up at that point. And I knew, like, Jack Oliver, great player too. Now he tripling up, being on my left. That wasn't good for me at all. But because of the fact that I won kind of everything before that, I wasn't like super sad about that hand. It was kind of funny in a way it happened, because also I hadn't realized right away that I lost against both of them. It was it took me a few seconds until I realized, okay, 7 diamonds I've lost against both of them.
Right. Well, so unfortunate, obviously, but you end up getting, Josh Ramito gets knocked out the very next hand. You guys end up getting into 3-handed the next day. You are still massive chip leader, 264 million to Jack 77 to George's 57. So you're still a massive chip leader, but these guys all have room, right? So it's not like they're short stacked at that point. The big blind is 1.6 million. So George with 57 million, he still has almost 35 big blinds. So he's got a lot of room. We're sort of slightly running out of time. I apologize. There's so much we could talk about. We could probably do another whole show on it. But you end up getting heads up with George, and it's a 4-hour heads up. This is not a short heads up. It really reminded me of Joe Cata versus Darvin Moon. May he rest in peace, Darvin. But Darvin, the amateur, Joe, the pro, and everyone expected Joe to win. And next thing you know, Darvin starts coming back and and Darvin wins hand after hand after hand. I was literally there covering it. And I remember turning to someone going, he's going to win. I mean, he's going to win. It's just all going his way. And It felt like that with George. Like you had the chip lead. You had a chip lead of, let's see, 262 to 137. So basically a 2-1 chip lead. But every single time, George just kept chipping away, getting a big hand, flopping two, turning two pair, all this kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden it was like first time since it was 20 players left. Whoop, you're no longer the chip leader. How did that must have felt a little sick, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it was the first time that things didn't go my way. So yeah, that didn't feel good. I mean, again, we were exhausted, not have slept so well, so the brain wasn't functioning too well.
Right.
Anyways, and then like the fans that are there shouting, like, and me losing the chip lead, yeah, it wasn't easy for me. So yeah, I'm glad. I think I made like some call on the river where he was bluffing that was right, which helped me like win not a huge pot, but like medium-sized pot. I think I had 8-6, and he had like king 6 on 8-7-5 or something. So that helped, and yeah, but I'm glad I won that big last hand in the end.
Yeah, let's talk about that big last hand.
Yeah.
Obviously, George raises to 6 million. You call. Flop comes 10-7 deuce. To put in perspective, you have 10-7. So I mean, what a dream flop, right?
Yeah.
You flop top 2. You check. He bets. You check raise him to 19 million, and he calls. The king lands on the turn. You bet 36.5. He thinks about it for a long time and calls. The turn comes a 9. You decide to check there. He moves all in and all hell breaks loose. Like, oh my God. And you tank for what seemed like literally an eternity. No, that's not a criticism. Obviously, huge decision because you guys were almost even in chips. Yes. You lose this hand. You were the chip leader, but you lose this hand. You have like 2 big blinds. I mean, like nothing, like 3 or 4 big blinds. It's basically over. He flips over king, queen for top pair. You have 2 pair. Talk a little bit about this hand, obviously, because it is the hand, right? This is the big hand. You flop top 2, massive moment. Talk a little bit about, and I'm not questioning it. I think it's really more of what I think the majority of amateurs out there don't raise there. They just kind of call and let him hang himself. Why do you raise there? Are you trying to build a bigger pot? Basically, are you going for the home run? Because if this guy has something over pair or whatever, we could really get something interesting. Are you going for the home run here? Is that why you check raised it there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think this is maybe a mistake some people do, that they slow play too often with their good hands. Right. I mean, now I want to raise some bluffs here too, but it's like, especially I want to raise my value hands, right?
Right.
In poker, you always want to cooler the other guy, right? I mean,
of course.
I want him to have aces there in that spot, or I want him to have ace 10, like top pair. So that's what I hope he has. I want to play pot as big as possible, first of all, with my top 2, which is a great hand, especially in heads-up poker, where the ranges are so wide. Like everybody has weaker hands too, so top 2, great. Yeah, especially against George, I think it was important to raise there because he wasn't always like betting in the dark, betting in the dark, basically. So I felt like if he had nothing, he would maybe just check. So I thought if he bets, especially his hand maybe a little bit stronger, so I raise. And then on the turn, when the king comes, lots of draws there. Yeah, still I want to bet big most of the time. You could maybe check raise something too, but if you check spec, that's kind of an issue.
Right.
I still have a really good hand, and yeah, on the river, the 9 is kind of a weird card, like the flush draws big. But I mean, he made some big folds before to me. So he folded correctly with ace queen on the queen jack 10 against my ace king. So I knew he wasn't like calling super light necessarily, and I hadn't made so many big bluffs. So I wasn't sure if he was going to call me with 1 pair, if I would just go all in here. And also on the other hand, he was bluffing kind of a lot when he had the chance, and there were some draws that missed. So basically my idea was to check and let him bluff. But yeah, I mean, for me, it didn't feel like an eternity actually. But I mean, I knew I thought about it, but at the time, yeah, just so many things going on in your hand, right? Like
what are the hand? I mean, obviously, the possibilities are he missed on a flush draw, right? Yes. He could have a 1 pair hand or something along those lines. So we know why you made the call, right? I mean, obviously you called because he could be bluffing on a flush draw. He might have what he had, king, queen, or something along those lines, maybe. But what are the hands that you thought that he could have, right? Like, to me, I looked at it, and what I try to do is try to, while the hand's going on, put myself in your position. Forget what cards you have and what he has. Forget it. Yeah. Like, I'm in your spot, and this has just happened, and I've got 2 pair. What could he have to beat me? I think the big hand that I would have been, the 2 hands are king 10, and then the other hand was queen jack, because queen jack gets there, right? He turns an open ender, right? If he has queen jack 10, turns an open ender and gets there on the river. That's the hand that if I'm in your spot, I'm sick to my stomach and thinking about, because it really kind of plays out. It makes sense, right? Like, he calls with the 2 overs, the turn hits, he calls with the now straight draw, hits the straight draw and shoves. I'm like, oh, I'm sick while I'm thinking about what were you, what's in your mind of what he could have to beat you?
Yeah, I mean, all those hands. I mean, I wasn't sure if he was going to call with just queen jack without a backdoor flush draw or so on, maybe. So maybe he doesn't always, like on the flop I'm talking about. Yeah. So that makes it a little less likely that he has all the queen jacks on the river, if you know what I mean. But I was definitely afraid of queen jack with a flush draw, maybe queen jack with a backdoor flush draw on the flop, those kind of hands. And then for sure king 10, maybe even like 10-9 beats me now too on the river, right? Like right 2 pair, maybe goes all in with that. There were a lot of hands that beat me, like maybe just a set of kings, right? Set of kings, very like plausible hand for him to have. I thought maybe some hands like deuces or so might fast play on the turn or so, might re-raise me again. So maybe it's a little less likely that he has that. And then I knew that there were a lot of draws that rigged, so I just hoped that he would have like a flush draw, basically, that missed. He turned something into a bluff. I have to admit, I didn't really expect him to have king queen there, just the top pair. Didn't expect it really. But I mean, I was obviously super that. And that's an important thing, by the way. Like, when I make that call, I don't know that I have the best hand. I know, okay, I hope he has a bluff that time and doesn't have like the hands to beat, because both of them were possible. I just thought, okay, he has enough bluffs that I have to call that hand.
Yeah, well, congratulations. I mean, what an incredible tournament that you had. Incredible call. A lot of people have praised it and talked about it, but what an amazing tournament. Congratulations. You are among, I'm not being sexist, unfortunately, there are no women main event champions. So to say this phrase is right, you are among a very small fraternity of players who have won the main event, and you are literally, I don't know, for better or worse, immortal in the world of poker. That's what we always talk about. Congratulations, and we wish you all the best, and we hope to see many more times where you come on the show and talk about your victories.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Bernard. Thanks a lot for having me. I had some connection problems like in the last seconds of our interview, but I heard most of what you said. Thanks a lot for having me. Thanks for the congratulations. It still feels super weird, like being the main event champion, but it feels good, of course. And talk to you in the future, I hope.
Perfect. Koray Aldemir, the 2021 World Series Main Event Champion. I hope you enjoyed our interview series with him, and we will be back with more interviews, of course. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
And if you enjoyed these interviews, again, please like and subscribe here on YouTube. Hit the notification so you can get more interviews here on my YouTube page. Thanks, everybody.